Special meeting of the St. Joseph County Council, March 21st, 2023 is now called to order. Our first item is new business. Clerk, will you please read the bill?
Bill number 43-23, a resolution of the St. Joseph County Council, Indiana Council approving the appointment of Joseph H. Serban, M.D., as the St. Joseph County Health Officer.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the bill?
Motion, we allow public comment on this bill?
You may make a motion.
I'll make a motion to public comment. Oh, you making it? Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
I wasn't done with my motion. Sorry, I get interrupted. I'm making a motion for three speakers on each side for public comment as a result of our limited time.
All right, we have two motions. Is there a second on either motion?
I'll second Councilwoman Drake's motion.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We will have a public hearing limited to 3 speakers for each side. In that case, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? You have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address for the record.
Christopher Godfrey, 52383 Swanson Drive, South Bend, Indiana. I thank you for this opportunity to share my gratitude and happiness that you got such a great candidate in Dr. Serban. I've known Dr. Serban for almost 30 years, and not only is he an accomplished doctor, he's got a lot of common sense, and so I expect him to do great service for this county in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council, President Root. I want to thank the Council for bringing us a good
Your
candidate.
name and address for the record, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stephen Whitmer, 5600 block of Eastview Drive, Osceola, Indiana, 46561. I want to thank you for expeditiously bringing us a good candidate, a local man, doctor, that has excelled in his position. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
My name is Heidi Beidinger, and I live at 50933 Sharpstone Court in Granger, Indiana. I'm currently on the Board of Health, and I was part of this process. And I concur with the gentlemen who have spoke before me that Dr. Serban is certainly worthy of this position. My comments have to do with the process by which we are appointing this individual. And the comment that I want to make is the distinction between offering an interim position, which would have been a limited term, versus a 4-year ironclad contract. So this was my concern. That was why I was the lone no vote when we took the vote for the Board of Health last week, Wednesday. And I have called to ISDH and come to find out that we have interim officers right now in the state of Indiana, and don't understand why we're not offering a part-time, an interim contract. Plus, we've already used them twice in the last few years. And as late as Wednesday morning, our board president was under the impression that he was going to be offering an interim position. And then it was spraying on the rest of us at the meeting that, in fact, a 4-year contract was going to be offered. So you can see my frustration and the frustration of other board members that this process was not clear. And we just don't understand how our board has utilized interim in the past, and now we're not using interim. And the contract, the 4-year contract, is ironclad. We had a health officer in the past that was doing the minimum that was required of a health officer, and it wasn't that great. And there was nothing that we could do to separate. And so this gentleman carried out his 4-year contract, and there was nothing we can do. So you can see where my concern is. Dr. Serban, I'm sure, is a fine man and will be able to carry out his duties. He said he's going to be here for 4 months. But that 4-year ironclad contract, we want to be careful with that. When we hire that person, let's make sure that we've got the right person, highly qualified individual who can carry out these responsibilities. Because once they're in there and they've signed that, there is virtually nothing we can do to remove them. Thank you.
President Root?
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Drake?
May I make a comment? One thing I want to point out is, in terms of state statute, there is something we can do. It's not so ironclad. The health board, if they find that the health officer is not performing his duty, can remove him.
That is actually not true. The statute says that the minimum requirement of a health officer is to meet the state mandates. This is the absolute bare minimum. So just by signing off on vital records, doing the abatement orders, appearing when he needs to appear, those are the minimum standards that allow them to stay in office. It is very, very difficult to remove somebody because they can be in and do the bare minimum.
My point remains that they do have that option.
And I'm telling you, we tried to exercise that option with the health officer previously, and we're not successful. It was impossible to do so. And in fact, our attorney had ended up advising the Board of Health not to pursue it because it was going to be very costly and we would lose.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Schuth. I live at 911 Leland Avenue in South Bend, Indiana. I work as director at Near Northwest Neighborhood, neighborhood-based community development corporation, and we've been working especially closely with the Department of Health in the realms of lead-based paint poisoning, with over 30% of the kids in our neighborhood being tested on a 10-year period being tested high. Actually, what Heidi referred to was a period of time when we were working with the Department of Health and they were doing very much the state minimum at the time. We were greatly relieved to have the leadership of Bob Einters come in and Dr. Mark Fox for a very proactive and expansive look at public health. So as you're looking for this transitional piece, I became greatly concerned reading actually the article in this morning's paper talking about Dr. Serban's limited availability. The fact that, again, where it's like I have no grounds to speak on his ability as a doctor, but I became greatly concerned that he stated publicly that he's only available for a period of 4 months and for limited hours a week. And to me, it seems like a greatly reduced decrease. And in knowing now that we cannot put in, there's a sense that we cannot put in an interim, I think that it's very dangerous to put in somebody who is not going to be available fully for the Department of Health. To be honest, I was really hoping that Dr. Fox could move into that position. He's greatly skilled. He has the experience, and I think would be a good fit as you look for somebody who could permanently fill the position. And so I would ask that you consider that the availability of somebody should be full-time. And especially if you're going to have to go to a 4-year contract with somebody, please look for somebody that is available full-time and for a 4-year period. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 slot left. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed on bill number 43-23. May I have a motion on the bill, please?
Mr. Root,
Yes, Mr. Catanzaro.
could the bill be amended?
I'm sure it can. Yeah,
Like an
amendment may be
offer.
offered.
I'd like to make an offer to amend the bill. I actually haven't seen, other than what I've seen it on the commissioner's docket for tonight. I've seen the wording of it. It does stipulate in the agreement a 4-year contract. Can we amend the bill to state 4 months versus 4 years? That'd be my amendment.
I guess my question here would be for legal counsel, because this is not actually
Sure.
our appointment. We're only asked
So
to
Commissioner,
confirm.
I'm here from the
Oh,
Health Department.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Health
so
Department
I'm
attorney.
representing the petitioner. Indiana Code Section
Can you give your
1620.
name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Marcel Leben, 140 East Colfax, South Bend, Indiana. Indiana Code Section 16-20-2-16 states, and I quote, "Each local board of health shall appoint a health officer to serve for a term of 4 years. The health officer serves until a successor is appointed and qualified." That is state law. The form that must be signed by the president of the local board of health, the chairman, and certified by the commissioners, the Indiana Department of Health form, has that code section on it. So any chairman of the local board of health has signed this. So the answer to your question is no, we cannot amend it for a 4-month term. Indiana code requires it's 4 years, and this body gets to approve or disapprove of the appointment from the Board of Health, which is new in state law. This is the first health officer in St. Joe County that would be subject to council approval due to a change that happened a couple years back.
So, Mr. Root, I have a question then for the petitioner. So that's the state form that says 4 years on there, Mr. Levin?
The state form references the statute. The statute is what I read to you.
Okay. So could the health board enter into a separate legal agreement with Dr. Serban that stipulates the length of time he wants to be the health officer outside of this?
Well, the health department can enter into a contract with Dr. Serban. That will be for the commissioners to approve, but he still has to be appointed for 4 years.
So in that stipulated contract or agreement, that could be stipulated, whatever length of term he wants to.
It could be, but
Agreed.
this is not for the contract. This is just for the approval of the appointment.
Understood. But I guess my question to you is, could it be stipulated in a separate agreement that he agrees to with the health board or with the commissioners?
The contract can't violate Indiana law. So we could have a contract that says we'll pay him for 4 months, but if he decides to serve thereafter, he's been appointed for 4 years, so he could continue to serve, as Dr. Beidinger had pointed out.
Were you the attorney she's referring to on the previous?
No, I was not here for the previous appointment. And like I said, I mean, the state form isn't changed, so if this was signed by a former chairperson, I mean, they should have been aware of what the state law is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien, just let me clarify. We are not allowed to change the terms here of what the health board has decided, right? We are only here to confirm or deny it?
That's my interpretation, yeah. Let me read the specific reference to the county council. So after June 30, 2021, so Mr. Levin referenced, hey, this is kind of new, okay? The appointment of a local health officer is subject to the approval of the appropriate county legislative body, which in St. Joe County and Lake County is the county council, the legislative body. Does not reference negotiating a contract or setting terms. That would be the health board, and then ultimately the commissioners would have to sign the contract. So I agree with, but I also defer to Mr. Levin as the health department's attorney, but I agree with his read of that statute. That it's an up or down vote at the council
On the appointment.
on the appointment.
Mr. Root?
Mr. Cottandre?
So, Mr. O'Brien, so do you agree with Mr. Levin's interpretation that if the commissioners or Board of Health entered into a contract with Dr. Serban that stipulated or specified a term that was less than 4 years, that would be violating state law?
Well, I guess my explanation would be there's nothing in state law that permits it. The statute says shall appoint health officer to a term of 4 years. It doesn't spell out you can't do it for 3 years and 11 months, you can't do it for 3 years and 10 months, you can't do it for 2 months. It just says you shall for 4 years. So from a statutory interpretation standpoint, if I were asked, I would say, well, the contract needs to be for 4 years, but I mean, the council doesn't have to sift through that. The council, and my advice to the council is simply, we as in you guys, approve or disapprove. That is, since June 30 of 2021, the appointment of the local health officer is subject to the approval or disapproval of you guys, you all.
So, yeah, that's my concern, Mr. Root and Mr. O'Brien, is that, you know, we have a health officer, potential health officer that openly has said that And again, I've heard nothing but fine things about him. I heard he's been a great physician, has a great reputation in our community, and very well could handle the duties of health officer to meet the basic requirements of health officers. No question about that, about Dr. Serban. But my concern is that publicly, he's said that he intends to not serve more than 4 years, or 4 months, I'm sorry, which is much less than the 4 years that is stipulated in the ordinance or resolution before us.
And there's nothing in the statute that would preclude the health officer from retiring or quitting early, just as, I don't know what the duration of the current health officer's contract is, but likewise, he's terminating early.
So may I have a motion on Bill 43-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We now have a motion to approve Bill number 43-23. Is there any further council discussion on the bill? Ms. Hess?
Yes, I have a comment. I came to this meeting with unanswered questions, and frankly, I still think they're unanswered, and concerns about this appointment. First, let me say that when we were first alerted to this meeting, we were informed that we would be approving an interim appointment, and then we learned that had changed. Dr. Einters announced his resignation at the end of December. It is now March 21st. Has there been any movement by the Board of Health to find a suitable public health doctor to fill this critically important full-time position? There should have been by now, it would seem. So why are we offering a 4-year contract to a doctor who states he only plans to work for 4 months in a part-time capacity? Why is this not an interim appointment? We are told that does not comply with state statute, yet this seems absurd and impractical on the surface. For instance, if a health officer were to drop dead today,
God forbid.
does that mean we would need to immediately find someone the very next day to sign a 4-year commitment? That doesn't make any sense at all. Replacing a position of this importance to our community should require a robust search, proper vetting, and community input. Secondly, the Board of Health president and attorney met with Dr. Mark Fox 10 days before the Board of Health meeting to explore his interest in serving as an interim position, as he had done most recently in 2019. So it appears that at least 10 days before the 4-year contract became the only option, there was discussion of appointing an interim health officer. What changed? Dr. Fox commented to WSBT that if the statute regarding an interim health officer had changed, they couldn't find it. The Vice President of the Board of Health also told me that when she met with Dr. Serban, both she and he understood this to be an interim position. Due to family reasons, she was unable to attend the Board of Health meeting and was surprised to learn that she also was surprised to learn this had changed. All of that aside, let me say that from everything I hear, Dr. Serban is a well-respected medical doctor in this community and has broad support to become an interim. I would support that also. I am concerned that the Board of Health seek out applications for a permanent replacement from doctors with a background and expertise in public health. Why? Because in medicine, the focus is on the individual patient when you're talking about a local medical doctor within the context of family and community. In public health, the focus is on the health of populations with the expression of illness found in the lives of individuals. I found that particular definition in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine in July 13th, 2011. I will conclude by stating that I am very concerned that the commendable work performed by Dr. Einters and his amazing team be continued in St. Joseph County. They are regarded as a model health department not only by our state and other counties in this state, but by counties in other states and by national and federal organizations. We need to keep an eye on just how this plays out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further council comment?
Mr. Root,
Mr. Moore?
it seems to me that the problem is the way the state law is stated. That's really the problem from my perspective. Because, we can go back and forth all night, and there's, like I said, there's no reflection, or I should say, like I've heard, there's no reflection on Dr. Serban, but I came into the meeting extremely apprehensive about this process because of the way the state statute is written again. But I'm even more apprehensive sitting here listening to the exchange from a board member, Ms. Beidinger, and my esteemed colleague up here, and that back and forth as far as being able to remove, whether it's Dr. Serban or whoever, that ability or inability to remove that person if we sign this 4-year contract, there again, because of what I'm understanding from the attorneys, the way the state law is written, I'm extremely concerned about that. Because, like I said, you know, we have a board member who I know for a fact is very active, and I also know that my colleague does her due diligence and looks into these matters. But that exchange, and I was around, obviously, when the health officer that we're making reference to, because when I would go up there and I'd go like, what the heck? And I won't mention his name, I'll just say, you know, I was around when that was happening. I wasn't aware of the ongoing attempts to get rid of him. And you're saying, as a board member, we couldn't do that. So that just concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comment before we?
Mr. Root?
I think Mr. Thomas was first.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Let me just start out by saying, like Dr. Einherz, Dr. Serban may choose to contract less than 40 hours a week. What's important is that we fulfill the state statute, I think. The medical director, we need a good medical director at the helm. And he obviously, I think, we all agree, is that person. I want to commend the Board of Health who did the work to put Dr. Serban forward. I'm very impressed by him. Dr. Einherz did say himself, though, and this bothers me, this county will come to a standstill as it relates to the statutory requirements of the health if the health officer is not named in place by April 1st. An individual not being able to get a birth certificate will not be able to get a death certificate. There can be no abatement orders. Nothing can be done, so that does bother me. With this in mind, the Board of Health made filling Dr. Einherz's upcoming vacancy a priority and worked extra hours to make this job selection a reality. Kudos to them for finding a doctor so well accomplished and so well respected, who's willing to give his time and talents to our citizens. Even with more time, I don't think the board could have made a better choice. And having the bipartisan support from a Republican board president and a Democrat vice president underscores that this is a candidate with consensus support. It's a bonus that we didn't have to look for someone outside our community to serve our citizens. I think that's fantastic that we stayed within our citizens, or within our county. Dr. Serban spent most of his life serving patients here, and in 2017 was named St. Joe County Doctor of the Year. He also has a strong background in public health, serving low-income and disadvantaged patients at the Navarre Student Outreach Clinic. His lived experience will serve him well. I am confident Dr. Serban's leadership, and I want to personally welcome him to the St. Joseph County Health Department. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Einherz for his more than 3 years of service and dedication to the people of St. Joe County, building a strong health department. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Do we need to recess and move to the back?
Well, we're going to in 3 minutes. If we're still going, we'll need to recess and reconvene because the commissioners are here.
I would just like to comment that, you know, the Vice President of the Board of Health told me she approved him as an interim appointment, not a 4-year contract. That was her understanding of what that looked like, so I just wanted to correct that.
That's really what I'm saying.
She told me that.
You know, the difference in the interpretation of the state law. That's the problem. There's no reflection on Serban.
Yes, and there's no, I don't, you know, again, I would
That's all.
gladly vote for Dr. Serban as an
Exactly.
interim.
Exactly.
Mr. Root, just have one quick
Yes,
comment.
real quick.
Ms. Bidinger, is there anybody else here from the health board besides yourself? No. Well, I guess my message would be to you, or to the, and maybe you can carry it back to the Board of Health from the county council, at least for me, I shouldn't say the council, but for me, knowing that Dr. Serban is an interim appointment, essentially, that he is committed to 4 months at the helm of the health department, would you guys begin the process now of an exhaustive search so we don't come to this situation again 4 months from now, 5 months from now? And I guess I'm saying, not would you, but will you, you know?
I would hope that that would be the case. John Lynn is our board president. I know he understands the urgency of this, and we also know that it is a lengthy period of time to find a highly qualified individual. I was
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further council comment? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
No.
Mr. Fig,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
No.
Mr. Catanzarite,
And again, not for concern of Dr. Serban or not for concern of his qualifications or abilities. I fully welcome and support him, but it's about the process and about the four-year contract. I'm no.
Mr. President Root,
Yes.
5-3 passes.
Let the record show that the county council, by a vote of 5-3, has confirmed the decision made by the Board of Health. Thank you. This meeting may I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor of adjournment, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Ayes have it, we are adjourned.